Life of a struggling wannabe horror content creator is full of ups and downs, and one of the biggest downs that I've experienced recently is doing all of this Alien Romulus coverage between a spoiler-free and a spoiler review, and completely forgetting to wear my little chest burster on my shoulders. I got this guy at a little convention a couple months ago. He's 3D printed. Super cool. I love him, and he sits on my shelf back there. But, yeah. So I'm gonna wear it for this video. Good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters. And yes, Alien Romulus is out, and so many of you have been able to see it, and I know some of you who haven't seen it just yet, but I know are excited to get there, and believe me, I'm excited for you as well. But yeah, this has been a fun week, man. I have really enjoyed talking Alien. I have dove so deep into so many of your videos online, just breaking down the franchise. The weeks leading up to this, I actually rewatched every single film in the Alien franchise. And, you know, I just wanted to kind of figure out a way that I could, you know, just kind of do one last hurrah with Alien before we kind of start diving into October and all of the other fun stuff that's going to be coming up over the next couple of months. And I thought, we haven't really done this. You know, I think we've had a couple of brief iterations on the channel, but nothing that really has taken off or I think done right yet. So I figured, why not? Let's kick it off with Alien, and I'm going to, of course, as you read the title of this video, give you my thoughts and feelings by ranking the Alien franchise. And yes, I'm going to be talking about all 10 Alien properties. Yes, I am aware. There are technically only 7, if you include Romulus, Alien solo films. I am also going to be including the AVP films, as well as Alien Isolation. I know that is a video game, but it's a video game that I really love, and it is a really kick-ass novelization if you have not heard it. I just genuinely enjoy the story, and from everything that I was able to look up, I believe it's still technically canon, so I thought, this is my list, this is my ranking. If I need to set it apart in any way, shape, or form from everybody else's, I'm just going to include that. So we have 10 films, all involving xenomorphs, and yeah, let's get into it. Let's see what are my thoughts and feelings on the Alien franchise. And as always, if you like this video and you want to support the channel and you feel that we deserve it, please hit that subscribe button. It would seriously mean the world to me, as well as hit that like button and share this video with your Alien loving friends. Starting things off with number 10, and I know for many of you there are only a select few on this list that could take this spot. Mine, unfortunately, I know this film has its fans and its defenders, but I'm talking about Alien vs. Predator Requiem. Now, if I was to go back to 2007, I'm sure my younger self would be slapping myself across the face for putting this low, because yeah, I thought this was a fine movie when it came out. You know, I was a young kid, I didn't know any better, and I thought that this movie was badass. I loved Aliens, I loved Predators, and the fact that this was R-rated and super hardcore, and let's be honest here, even though I don't like this movie, the Pred Alien is a pretty cool idea. But yeah, I mean, as I revisit this franchise, as I go back and watch this movie, this is kind of a mess of a film, and I don't just mean that because it's so dark and you can't really see anything. Everybody harps on that. I primarily mean just by this kind of being a very quick and aimless movie. It's more of a slasher film, like a small town slasher, than it is this kind of sci-fi adventure. At least with the original Alien vs. Predator, you had the kind of pyramid, Lost in the Antarctic kind of vibe going on there. This is seriously just dropping aliens and predators into a residential neighborhood and watching them kind of go crazy from what you can see. And yeah, you'd think that would be a lot of fun, but the way that they decided to do it for this one, it just doesn't do it for me. And yeah, the older I get, the harder it is for me to go back and actually sit through this movie. Next up, taking my number 9 spot, we have Alien Covenant. Yeah, I know. there are a lot of people that love this movie, and there's a lot of people who see this as a great follow-up to Prometheus. I am not one of those people. I was severely disappointed by this movie. Luke and I kind of dog on this thing all of the time because, yeah, we enjoyed Prometheus quite a bit. But this movie, man, this is just Identity Crisis, the film. This is a movie that I feel was so ham-fisted with studios saying, hey, we need xenomorphs. Everybody hated Prometheus. We need xenomorphs. Ridley, you gotta put them in there. You gotta make them happen. And it just feels like there's, a good, decent sequel, I guess, to Prometheus for most of this movie. And then it feels like we just hit fast forward just to get facehuggers and xenomorphs in the film. And I just feel like the pacing of this movie is kind of a mess. And I think that David's cool. I really love Michael Fassbender in both these movies, especially with his turn as Walter. I kind of like having those two opposing sides to the same character. But I don't know, man. This movie, once we kind of get into the actual xenomorph action, it really does start to lose me. It feels so, again, ham-fisted and forced that I just don't think this is the original intent. In fact, I know this isn't the original intent of where Ridley Scott wanted to take his Prometheus sequel. And I just feel like for that, too many compromises were made, and it's such a glaring issue for me every time I sit down and watch this film. Because, yeah, I've tried. I really do sit down and watch this one, I think, pretty regularly, more than I watch Alien vs. Predator Requiem, and I just find myself falling into the same old steps every single time I watch it. I get excited, I like it, there are parts that I think are cool. I love the Neomorph. I think that that's such a cool design. I love that it's a backburster. There are intense moments, but God, once we get into that, last half of that second act and into the third, this movie just loses me every single time. Next up, in the number 8 spot, we have 1997's Alien Resurrection. And yeah, this movie's fine. This is one of those ones in the franchise that, I don't know. I feel like I liked it more as a kid. I thought that, it has a lot more of that action. I do like a lot of the looks of the xenomorph in this, other than the thing we'll talk about in a second. And, when I was younger, I found this to be a good bit of fun to watch. I love the sequence, and I still do today, of the xenomorphs underwater. I think that that's probably the best scene in the entire film. That and the elevator shaft, I think, is super cool. But I don't know, man. I just think that the ideas in this movie, they feel, again, very forced. Like we have to get Sigourney Weaver back in this role. I mean, she died in number 3, and I get they're cloning her and bringing her back, and it's a neat way to kind of bring the actress back and change her a little bit, but I don't know. I just feel like once we step into this film, this is where we kind of start to put the brakes on this franchise really hard, because as you can see, everything else that we've gotten from this franchise is either a spin-off or it's, a prequel. Because where do you go after that? Where do you go after we've cloned human DNA and harvested aliens from that? It just doesn't really work for me after a while. And I think, the cast in this is very solid. I will give it that. I think that the team is really good. Obviously, I love Winona Ryder and Ron Perlman. I think that this whole unit that they come onto the ship with is awesome. I really love the way that they are integrated into the story, as far as they are supposed to go find cryopods to kind of sell to Weyland under the table. And I think that's super cool. I think that is a really fun concept, but I think that the kind of early 2000s, late 90s cheese that kind of permeates this film really is a huge drawback for me. And again, I just think that the ideas get really into that kind of goofy side of sci-fi horror. It's not as scary anymore. It's more just, we're leaning really hard into the action side of it. And, again, it has entertaining bits. Again, where this movie loses me a lot is that newborn. The newborn alien is a cool design. I don't fucking like this thing. It's ugly. I know that's the intent, but it's the shrieking, all of it. I don't like that it kills the queen. It gets messy for me. It's just one of those ones where each time I sit down and watch this movie, I just kind of find myself being like, that was okay. You know, it's not offensive. I do not blame anybody who loves this movie. I won't like fight you as much as I would with Covenant or Requiem. But for me, it's just not my cup of tea. My number 7 spot is where I am deciding to put Alien Isolation. Yeah, I get it. I know some of you probably hate this and are going to comment a bunch of bullshit in the comments about it. Feel free. But yeah, 2014, we got this game. And my God, this is one of the best survival horror games and experiences that I've ever had. And I gotta say, as somebody who was so excited for Romulus, I went back and I actually listened to the audiobook novelization of this. And the little bits that they add to that book really just had me fall back in love with the story of Alien Isolation. I think that this is one of the best examples of kind of where this franchise can be taken. I know that not a lot of people were crazy about the idea of playing as Ripley's daughter at first, Amanda Ripley, but once you actually play as her or listen to her in the book, you just get so absorbed in her character. You feel for her. They do a lot of great legwork with kind of showing what her life was like and what it is like to be a child whose mother just disappears off into space. You have no idea what happened, how Wayland kind of gets involved into their lives, and it's really well done. It's a really well told story, and I really only have it this much lower on the list only because I think that for what it is, it does kind of fall into the same old beats and tropes of any other Alien story. I know Romulus is getting a lot of criticism right now about being kind of a direct ripoff of other films, where this one, very much as you play the game, it's a better experience, but when you listen to the novel, you do kind of just get the sense that this is just kind of retreading a lot of the same ground that we had from that first Alien. But I think that it's still a serviceable story, and I think that the character of Amanda Ripley, first and foremost, is one that I absolutely love having in this franchise. It does kind of fill in some gaps that I didn't necessarily know that I ever wanted to be filled in, and I'm kind of happy that they did. And again, I think that this being a bang-up survival horror game, as well as just an interesting look at a side story in the Alien universe, makes this so worth your time. So if you're not a video game person, I urge you to go and listen to the book or read the book. But if you are into video games and you haven't tried Alien Isolation and you want to get scared, do yourself a favor and get this game. I think it's $4.99 on Steam right now, so it's totally worth it. I'll be the first to admit that nostalgia is a hell of a drug. And yeah, it really does kind of push this one up for me a bit, this being the first time that I ever got to see an Alien or a Predator on the big screen, and I'm of course talking about 2004's Alien vs. Predator. I love this movie. I know it's not perfect. I know it's a little bit boring as we kind of get things rolling, and I've noticed that the older that I get, but it is one of those films that, again, will always stick into my mind of going to the theater and seeing it, and just finally being able to watch these two creatures that I've watched on VHS tape duke it out, and just my mind was just creatively just in awe. Like, I was in heaven, and I was just like, oh my god, this is amazing. And yeah, I kind of love how they make this thing work. I know it's not perfect, and I know that they kind of really confused people with the timeline on this one until I guess we kind of decided that this is an offshoot, or at least takes place in the Predator universe. Still not entirely clear on that. But I think that this is just a fun film all in all when you really sit back and just let it be what it is. It's a versus movie. And I think once the actual Predators and Aliens come on screen and they start duking it out, you get some great effect shots. You know, I think that the CG in some scenes is definitely dated, but not that bad. I mean, honestly, there's a lot of really great practical effects in here. I love the idea of using this pyramid and them kind of establishing the lore that the predators came down and used us to breed aliens or xenomorphs, and that they were the ultimate weapon or the ultimate hunt. And I just thought that that was really cool. And for what it is, again, it's a dumb movie, and it's got a lot of really dumb characters in it. But fuck, man, when we get to those final few action sequences where it's like, you have the Predator and I believe her name was Lex or Alex. I'm sorry, forgive me. But she teams up with the Predator and they fight the Queen alien. I just love it, man. And there is an unrated version where you get a little bit more blood and an alternate opening. So, there are some big wins here. I think that this is pretty cool. And it's a film that, again, will always have a special place in my heart, no matter how goofy it is. All right, we're here. It's top 5 time, baby. And coming in at number 5, we have 1992's Alien 3. Yeah. This was, I think, for a long time, the worst one in the franchise. I think many people agreed on that. I've never seen it that way. This was one, again, I didn't watch all the time as a kid, but I really started to check out when I was kind of in high school, I want to say. I was probably about 17, maybe 18 when I first really gave this a shot. And I always thought that this movie, like, for being how dark it is and the story they were trying to tell with it, really resonates with me. I kind of really like watching Ellen Ripley kind of almost be in hell in a sense. I mean, she kind of won at the end of Aliens, and I agree with everybody else. I don't like the idea of them just killing off Hicks and Newt at the beginning of this, but at that time in my life, it was kind of just one of those, it is what it is. So when we're on a prison planet, Fury 161, I think it is, and we're dealing with all of these prisoners, and, there's maybe an alien running around. We don't 100% know right away, but then suddenly we do start to find things out. I thought it was cool, and I think that they introduce a lot of really neat ideas with having the alien, depending on the cut you're watching, either be birthed from an ox or a dog, and I just thought that that was neat, kind of, again, reinvigorating the alien itself and giving us this idea of, wow, this thing can actually, be birthed from other living life forms. What does that look like? And yeah, I know this film doesn't sit well with a lot of people. It's too dark. It's too just, dramatic. It totally is a departure from the second film, which is a blast. It's an absolute 100% masterpiece. But, I just find myself every time I sit down and watch this movie enjoying the journey and really loving the sacrifice at the end. I think that it's really strong. I think that Sigourney Weaver gives a really, really great performance in this one. And I don't know, I just have a lot of love for Alien 3. I feel like as, time goes on, I'm not the only one who feels that way. I know Luke really likes Alien 3, but I think that more and more people are starting to come around to this one as the film goes on. So maybe this will be like Halloween 3 eventually, where people are like, no, it's not a bad movie. It's a flawed movie, but it's not bad. Which moves us right along into my number 4, which is, of course, now the most controversial Alien film in the franchise. And we just did a video on this one, and of course I'm talking about Prometheus. We did a hot takes video where Luke and I kind of break down why we love this movie, so I'm going to direct you to that video, which is up on the channel. I'll have a link up in the corner here, and you can get my in-depth thoughts on it. But I love Prometheus. I've loved Prometheus since I saw it in theaters. I love the ideas of this film. It is a strong movie with not only fantastic, epic visuals, but a lot of really deep messaging, and really establishes itself as one of the best jumping off points for this franchise. I wish more prequels would take risks like this and actually go back and not only explore the very bare bones basics of what the first film in a franchise is or what the prequel is predating, but actually go through and look at some of the pieces of the world we didn't explore and open those up a bit. So I love Prometheus. It'll always have a special place in my heart, and that is why it is my number 4. Moving on to my number 3 spot, Fede Alvarez, you son of a bitch. you've done it. And yeah, it's Alien Romulus. This is for sure, I think, one of my top 3, probably forever. I very much have a hard time seeing, at least right now, my top 3 of this franchise shifting at all. This film has just given me everything that I want out of an Alien sequel. This is just one of the best Alien films that we have had since I've been alive. It's one of the best I've ever seen in the theater. I adore this film, and it's because, again, it leads more into the horror roots, or I guess leans more into the horror roots of the franchise. It's got so many wonderful performances in it, and of course, because this is still new, I won't talk any spoilers, but I just thought that this movie absolutely fired on all cylinders for me. It takes risks, and it decides to do something that I think more franchise films need to do, and that is, we're not going to get rid of what came before, and we're not going to undercut what comes after. We are simply just going to take all of these pieces that are in this playpen, and we are going to make them work. And I just thought that this movie absolutely did what I wanted it to do. I thought that it was intense. It was very well thought out. It was very, very beautiful to look at. It captures that original's aesthetic so well. And yeah, there are a handful of little tiny things that I thought, could have done without, but, you know, no film is perfect. So I just got to sit here and say, though, on the whole, this is absolutely so worth your time. You should definitely go out to the theater and check this thing out while it's still here, depending on when you're watching this video. But I fucking love Alien Romulus. All right, we're down to the final 2 on this list, and I know for many of you, it's just a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B. We just got to figure out where I'm putting Alien and Aliens. And yeah, I mean, as it sits right now, I know I said that my top 3 as far as Alien films wouldn't shift at all. And I mean that. Just those 3 films are always going to be in my top 3. But what's going to be my number 1 pick? Now, that's a different story. I think that the first 2 films are perfect movies. I love them both for different reasons. So as we sit in the year 2024, as I make this video, I'm going to put 1979's Alien as my number 2. And I mean, there's really no reason why other than just I had, you know, we'll get into it, but I love Alien. Alien is a seminal horror film for me. It's a seminal film in general for me. I just remember the first time ever sitting down and watching this movie, and for it being kind of a slower, early 80s, late 70s kind of horror film, I was absorbed. I was a young kid watching this movie on TV, and I was just like, oh my god, this is so incredible. The chest burster, I mean, it's the scene everybody remembers, but all of it, like just watching these people go throughout this ship and not knowing where this monster is as it hunts them down one by one, it's perfect intergalactic terror. I mean, this is just awesome. I love the world that this builds, and I truly love the franchise that this film spawned. I know this was never the intent to make this into this large of a franchise with so many twists and turns, but I mean, Ridley Scott has made himself a name with this film. He made himself the director he is today, which I don't agree with everything that the man has made. I think that he's got great movies, he's got good movies, and he's got some terrible movies, but Alien will always be a phenomenal masterpiece of a film to me. So that only leaves us with one other film, and of course my number 1 is Aliens. I mean, you cannot bet against James Cameron. If there's anything that I have learned over my many years of being on this earth, is anytime that James Cameron is putting out a film, you gotta show up and you gotta give it a shot, because the dude very rarely, if ever, misses. And I think that 1986's Aliens is easily, if not his best film, his second best film, and the only other movie I could think of that kind of goes against it for me is Terminator 2. So if you give this guy a sequel and put that number 2 or S or whatever he wants to put after it, he tends to deliver. And Aliens is just this amazing action horror film, and I love it. And you think the biggest thing that makes me sway towards this film more so than Alien, at least at this point in time in my life, is going back and watching this movie and just getting absorbed in this cast. I think that, you have a lot of regulars that you would see in a lot of James Cameron's work, of course, Michael Biehn, and then you have the great Bill Paxton, who's in this as well, and it's just filled with character actors. I mean, from start to finish, you have Paul Reiser, Sigourney Weaver, Lance Henriksen, my God. The dude, they absolutely all crush it. And I think that, I don't have to go too deep into the story as to why I love this movie, but if I'm going to talk about anything that makes me kind of set itself apart from just saying, oh, it's a badass film, I love the way that James Cameron builds out the Alien world and lore with this. I love that he dives into the kind of the politics of the company. We get just a small taste of seeing what regular life is like in this universe. And I personally, of course, prefer the director's cut. I love seeing Newt's family go and discover the ship and seeing the face hugger on there, the implications there. I think that that is such a smart setup, and it pains me that that wasn't in the original cut, but thankfully we have the director's cut to have shown us that. I mean, Aliens is a perfect film, and just like the first film, it's a masterpiece. And again, I could flip-flop these all day long. Maybe I wake up tomorrow and Alien is my number one. But Aliens absolutely wins my heart every single time I sit down and watch it. I think that, again, the action, the effects, the scope of Aliens, it just absorbs me each time I sit down and watch this movie. And it is the GOAT of the franchise. It's my number one. I know many of you will agree with me. And even those of you who disagree with me on that can't fault me for loving this film. And I know for all of us, most of us, it's always going to be these first two films that are going to be the top dogs, the top of the food chain. And I don't see it going any other way, unless there's another incredible outing from Alien, which Romulus, to me, fantastic. Absolutely hits the nail on the head for some of these, but I mean, how do you get better than James Cameron's Aliens? There you have it, folks. 10 films. I'm classifying Isolation as a film. Stories. Essentially, the entire Alien franchise ranked. And I love these movies. I even think the ones that I hate, I find little bits in there that I enjoy. And I love the conversation. As much as it pains me to see some people just saying that Romulus is a clone of the first two, because I don't see it personally, I do love that we are able to go back to the series and just see what everybody's able to take away from it as horror fans, as action fans, as sci-fi fans. It's one of the most important film franchises, I think, in existence for us. And I'm so happy to be celebrating it. I'm so happy to be making this list. And yeah, I enjoyed this. I had fun. Again, we don't do ranking videos all that often, but if you guys like this and we can blow this video up a little bit and you guys show some support by hitting that like button, sharing this, and subscribing, I'll gladly go through and every once in a while throw up a handful of franchises, have you guys vote, and give you what I think my lists would be as far as ranking the franchise. But just know, things are always changing. And I think that's important to kind of throw up front here, I guess on the tail end here of this, is that just because this is my list now doesn't mean that in a couple years I could come back when we get another Alien film and have different thoughts. That's the beauty of cinema. And yeah, I like this. This was fun. So thank you guys for watching. I do seriously appreciate it. And yeah, let me know down below where you guys rank the Alien films. I want to know, where does Romulus fall for you? Is it towards the bottom, or is this one also for you in the top 3? Alrighty, so I guess that's it. Until next time, I'm Dylan Newell, and remember, stay scared.
Do the horror shit, gonna do it live, 'cause Splattercast kick it every day they live. Splattercast, slash ass, Splattercast, slash ass, Splattercast, slash ass, Splattercast, slash ass. slash your ass.